Hey everyone, Steven here. So if you saw my last video that I'm gonna link to the description below, you know like I'm a big fan of Compound. And nowadays there's actually a few other players in the market now, like Aave, which I'm gonna talk about today in this video. And also a few others like Cream Finance. I'm gonna make a couple of videos and just go over the pros and cons and how I utilize them. Because if you used these liquidity protocols like Compound, there are certain ones that are better for certain scenarios. Like Cream Finance is usually better for stablecoins if you want that. Whereas like Compound is much better for security and things like that if you want that. And then Aave is one of those platforms that have a lot more options, and it's actually not too bad on security either. I think it's Compound is pretty up there. It's probably one of the most secure, like not so much secure, but one of the most heavily audited dApps out there that I've seen. And so that's a pretty high level. But Aave is also audited a lot. It's quite a few times as well, if I remember correctly. So I'm just going to talk about Aave and how I use Aave. I actually use Compound more often, but Aave is good for certain types of people, especially if you have a lot of assets and want a good level of security. And so the main thing with Aave is that if you go over here, you can see that they have just a ton of assets. I'm going to just move my my camera over here a bit. And so you see they really support a lot of them, like synthetics, Ren. I made a few videos on synthetics before. I also have some tokens here, and you can see like on synthetics. Let's go in and see what the collateral ratio is for synthetics. And you think loan seems like the loan to value isn't very high for synthetics. So yeah, so that's one of the main great things about Aave is that they have a lot more assets than Compound. One thing to note, which is a pretty huge con and reason that I don't use it as much, is that the borrow rates for stable coins is really high, especially on the Aave V1 version. And there is a reason for that. The V2 is actually much better. I actually suggest like everyone that uses Aave, go with the V2. You're just going to get much better rates. It's a better built product as well than their version 1. And they really like honed in on a lot of these things, on a lot of the things on their V2. And the other good feature about it is that they do, unlike Compound, which basically the interest rate on the borrowed assets fluctuate like basically every second they would change, right? It's not a huge change between like day to day usually, but between weeks to weeks, it can go from like 3% to 7% to 8%. That's usually okay for me because I usually take the stable coins and yield on it. So my yield is usually like upwards of 20%. So paying that 8, 7, 9%, sometimes 10% isn't really that big of a deal for me. But on Aave, what you can do is you can set it to be a stable APR when you borrow it out, so the rates don't fluctuate. So for example, when you borrow it out, you can set it so that it's stable at 8% continuously until you pay it back, right? So that's pretty cool that they were able to create the tokenomics to make that work. And yeah, and that's one of the cool things. The only other thing is like Aave is usually to borrow stable coins is usually higher than Compound. If we go to the Compound Finance app, we can kind of see what the rates are on theirs. So you can see like USD coin right now to borrow costs about 23%, right? That's really, really high. Probably more than most ways you can yield with USD coin. And then if you go to, let me change my screen a little bit. If you go to Compound, USD coin is just 13.9%, right? And then though the one on Aave for DAI is actually pretty low right now, about 3.95%. And yeah, so usually some of the stable coins are usually higher on Aave. There are rare instances where certain ones are lower. And the reason for that is because they have the stable APR, right? So they have to, for the people that opted in for the stable APR, they have to keep it stable for those people, right? So then everyone else that borrows after them may have a higher or lower rate to adjust for the stable ones to make sure. So overall, the entire protocol might actually have similar rates to Compound if they average in all of the people who have stable borrow rates and all the people who have variable borrow rates. Just because it's not really feasible for them to attract users if it's overly high rates or overly low rates, right? And that's usually that's usually how Aave works. I also use DeFi Saver. You might have seen me talk about it in my Compound Finance video for Aave as well. I'm not going to go over too much about DeFi Saver and why I use it in this video. You can check out my other my Compound video, which I'll link in the description below, for you to find out why I use Compound Saver, how I use it to avoid margin calls, and and just overall how to use it. It's very similar to Compound. You create has all the same features. So yeah, but I just want to bring that up because it's really useful to use DeFi Saver for Aave, Compound, and all these liquidity protocols and things like that. And yeah, so that's basically like the overview of Aave. I would recommend them primarily because they are more secure and things like that. Definitely one of the more secure DeFi apps out there. If there are any developers or blockchain developers watching this, I think something really cool would be so Aave to actually make in this space. It's actually kind of similar to DeFi Saver. I just want to put it out there in case anybody's looking for ideas to develop on, is to basically automatically switch the borrowed amounts between different stablecoin assets. For example, if I borrowed initially from Aave, I put in Ethereum, then borrowed USD coin. But when I borrowed it, it was about 3%, right? Now USD coin is 23%. And I actually always just want the lowest APR stablecoin asset being borrowed. I'd love to see an app that just automatically switches those for me, right? Automatically transfers all my USD coin denominated loans into DAI denominated loans. And I believe Aave has a feature around that. Or if anybody is interested in partnering up with someone to develop this, let me know. I do Solidity programming as well, but I don't think I have enough time to kind of develop it all on my own right now. So if anybody out there who's a Solidity dev, blockchain dev, let me know. Shoot me a comment in the YouTube comments or shoot me a tweet on Twitter or a DM. I think that would be something really useful. It could get a lot of users, and I personally would use it a lot as well. So that's what's cool about Aave. And then, over here, you can see this exact same issue. You borrow on USDT coin, it's about 3.99%, while you borrow on True USD, it's 28%, right? And these kind of flop. Maybe later on, it might be DAI that's 23%, whereas USD coin is 3%, right? So that's sort of something that would be really cool if someone created. That's one of the good things about Aave. The other thing that's kind of cool is that you can borrow Ethereum pretty cheap on here as well. So for example, if you want to borrow wrapped Ethereum, it's less than 1% right now, right? So what's cool about that is what you can do is if you don't want to take on a lot of risk by holding Ethereum, I know there are some people new to the space that rather hold stable coins instead of holding Ethereum. Then what you can do is you can just buy a bunch of stable coins like USD coin or whatnot, earn like 12% yield on that, right? Deposit APY and borrow Ethereum. But what you can do with the Ethereum is then take the Ethereum and then yield farm it on places like KeeperDAO, or provide liquidity on Uniswap and get like 10% or 20% on your Ethereum. And then you need to pay Aave like 1% a year, right? So now you have 19% gains every year in Ethereum, and now you basically have free Ethereum now, right? And your stable coins are still getting like 12% interest rate, which is better than any bank account out there, better than a lot of crappy stocks. Definitely not better than really good stocks, right? Like Tesla or some of these really great companies, but that's a really like low risk way of getting really good amounts of yield, right? And yeah, so yeah, and that's about it for in terms of like about Aave. If there's anything else you want me to go over, leave it in the YouTube comments. What do you think of Aave? Let me know as well in the YouTube comments. And yeah, and if this was helpful, do leave a like or subscribe to the channel. You can also check out my DeFi playlist to see all the videos I've done in the DeFi space, and to learn about some of the other protocols, and yeah, and just my reviews on certain ones, so that you can stay safe and not get scammed in this space, not get hacked. And yeah, thanks. Yeah, and thanks for watching.